Hello, welcome, and thanks for watching the complete guide to the North West Airfield. For those of you who are new to the game, the North West Airfield has long been considered the main attraction of the Trinaris map. It's where people go to find some of the best loot in the game, some crazy PvP, and sometimes even a ticket back to the coast. For those of you who would like to know how to get to the airfield, I'm going to refer you to my Loot Route Guide series, which can be found in the card above and the description below. I hope you find these videos helpful, and if you do, please subscribe. The North West Airfield is a huge area with a lot of unique buildings and some great loot. This is one of the areas in the map where you'll be able to find AKMs, M4s, military clothing, night vision goggles, and a hell of a lot more. I'm going to cover the entire airfield in sections, starting with the northernmost section, Bash, the tents, East Industrial, West Industrial, the shooting range, and the southern barracks. Alright, let's take a look at Bash. Bash is up on a hill in the northernmost part of the airfield. It has 7 barracks, a camo jail building, a tent, a guard shack, and a couple of military shipping containers. A good vantage point to overlook Bash can be found on the northern hill right nearby the radio tower. If you're feeling ballsy, you can even climb the radio tower and have a look around to see pretty much everything. However, you're obviously going to be really visible from up here. You can also see some of the southern part of the airfield from here. Quick note, loot does spawn on this radio tower. Alright, now let's move on and take a look at the tents. The tents is a cool little section of the airfield with a lot of zombies and some great loot. This is where the brief firefight took place from the beginning of the video. The tents area has 8 tents, the DOI, 1 camo net structure, and a couple of military shipping containers. If you're here on your own, I highly recommend staying crouched and moving slow to avoid aggravating any of the zombies in the area and giving away your position. Be really careful and look out of the northern hills as they provide a really good vantage point for a view into the tents. However, if you stay crouched while moving around in the tents, you might be able to avoid detection. The tents also has a crashed plane on the western side that gives a pretty good line of sight not only into the tents, but into the industrial sections of the airfield as well. If you're going to look around from here, be sure to use the tail of the plane as cover, and be prepared to run because you're probably going to get spotted. Alright, let's take a look at the East Industrial section of the map. Eastern Industrial is very large and has a lot of unique buildings. The 3 main buildings, though, are the ATC, the factory, and the glass factory. These are your main sniper vantage points, and I'm going to cover ranges and other information about these in a minute. Some of the unique structures in this area include the underground hangars, which do spawn loot, the mounds, and the really big hangar, which doesn't really have much in it. Over here we have those underground hangars, the factory, and there's also a barracks building. Down here we have the ATC, which includes a PA system that allow you to talk to the entire airfield, and a camo jail building. Over here we have some industrial buildings, including the glass factory, and another barracks. Down here we have that large hangar, and over here we have another camo jail building and a couple of guard shacks that spawn police station loot. Moving on to Western Industrial. There's not a whole lot in West Industrial, it's pretty open, but let's pan it north to south. Here we have a junkyard with a bunch of scrapped cars. Further down we have some open area with a couple of those mounds we saw earlier and some ruins. Here we have a barracks and a camo jail. Some more mounds and a blue door barn, a couple other industrial things. A dome barracks. And finally, 2 more barracks and a couple of sheds. Now that we've covered the tents and both industrial areas, I want to talk a little bit about the main sniping positions and the ranges in between each of them. In the east, we've got the factory, the glass factory, and the ATC. In the west, we have the camo jail building, and then up north, we've got the tents. Now I measured the ranges in between all of these, and here's how they pan out. From the factory to the tents, it's 400 meters. From the ATC to the tents, it's 750 meters. From the west jail to the tents, the factory, and the ATC, it's all about 500 meters. From the ATC to the factory, it's 450 meters. From the factory to the glass factory, it's 350 meters. And finally, from the ATC to the glass factory, it's 300 meters. I'll be sure to provide a link to this image in the description below for your reference. Moving on to the barracks. The barracks are a fun but dangerous place to loot because of the addition of these new buildings, which are referred to as the Arma 3 barracks. They remind me a lot of the dorm area in Escape from Tarkov. There are 2 levels, balconies, and a lot of windows. This is a fun place to have a firefight because you can easily lose your enemy in these buildings, but of course they can do the same to you, so that makes it a little tough. Here's an overview of the barracks area looking at it from the northeast. First, we've got 2 different sections that have 4 of those Arma 3 barrack buildings I mentioned. We've got 2 classic DayZ barracks over here, 2 more classic DayZ barracks over here with some industrial sheds, 1 solitary barracks over on the left, and then finally this building right here. I call this building out specifically because it seems to be a magnet for PvP, for a lot of different reasons. First, it's got these tiny little window slits that give you a sneaky way to overview the rest of the barracks area. But on top of that, there's a pretty good view from the roof and the windows to the eastern side of the airfield. It's 600 meters from this building to the construction site, and 850 meters from here to the ATC. Alright, one more area to check out. The shooting range, or also known as the construction site. Starting where we left off in Eastern Industrial, we've got 8 more of those underground hangars, and a dome barracks. Three more hangars over here, and 2 barracks off to the left here. This is the construction site section. I see a couple people on that building to the left looking out, trying to scope the place out. Not too often though. We've got the 3 barracks you can see here. Here we've got the little training obstacle course thing for military training. On the left here we've got a camo net building and a tent to our right. And finally, we have the shooting range itself with 1 tent on the side. Now before we wrap up, I just want to mention something about the perimeter. You've got all these green guard towers surrounding the entire airfield, and these are great places to find boxes of ammunition, some magazines, gas masks, some other odds and ends. Obviously, you gotta be careful while you're climbing the ladder, you're very vulnerable, so watch out. Now this tip comes from Sour Sweet, whose channel you can find in the link in the description below. Definitely check him out. In the northwestern corner of the airfield, near the Western Industrials junkyard, you can find this rock. By climbing this rock, you can get a pretty decent view of some of the important sections of the airfield, and it's from an area where you're unlikely to be noticed. From here, it's 350 meters to the plane and 550 meters to the tents themselves. It's 800 meters to the factory and 1,000 meters to the glass factory. So if anybody can land a shot on this one, I would definitely like to see footage of that. The last thing I'll cover is to give you a little bit of information about the surrounding towns for when you need to recover from a firefight. Southwest of the airfield is Vybor, which has a well, a blue medical building, and a police station. South of the airfield, you've got Cabanino, which offers a well, some farms, and a church. And to the east, you've got Grishino, which has a well and a police station. These are by no means safe towns. People in these areas are likely going to be recovering from a firefight, or they're going to be preparing for one, so stay alert. Alright, that's it for this video. If you guys learned something, please subscribe and you won't miss out on other guide videos and some adventure ones as well. You can also find me on Twitch, where I do live streams and ironically get quite lost a lot of the time. Anyways, thanks again everyone, and I'll catch you next time.